All right, so we're up to section 4, which is the bread and butter of this course, which revolves around the 5 case studies. Now, these 5 case studies are all based on the same project, and how I've organized them is basically they will run in succession and they're each dependent on the last one. So we'll cover a topic and we'll just keep building on it for the next case study and the next and the next. And we're going to go from easier to more difficult as we go along for in terms of testing and analyzing concepts. So the 5 case studies, they revolve around the development of an open cut coal mine in Australia. The numbers are pretty accurate based on real world values. However, they have been approximated a little bit. The project's in the final stages of design, with a lot of the packages having been factored into the base estimate. And we've already done the QRA and given you the values in the tables just to make it a bit easier. We haven't done the QRA, we have done the risk workshop, sorry. But before we do, you need to install Argo, which is the free Monte Carlo software, and that's managed by Booz Allen Hamilton. I've added some instructions in another PDF in the download section, but you should download the software from this link here. It's on GitHub, and you'd install it no different to any other Excel add-in, and you'll get this little Argo tab in your Excel ribbon. Now, I want you to open up the file called Case Study 1, Project Budget Contingency, and this is like sort of what this course is all about, really. It's about, well, how much budget should I actually put as contingency based on my input risk? And what I've given here is the base estimates that we got from the quotes, and from the risk workshop, we've put in the likely, optimistic, pessimistic, best and worst values in percentages. Now, just don't mind that I put 1 in 10 here for worst and best. It should be at optimistic and pessimistic. My bad, sorry. But all values are in millions of dollars, and the question we got to answer is how much contingency do we need for P80, which is 80% certainty of not exceeding the budget. So let's get started. So this is exercise 1, project budget contingency. I've also attached the completed one as a reference if you want, but just start off with the bare bones one and we'll work through it. I've actually done the next slides quite in detail on how you get to that final stage. So if you're more of a reader and just want to read through, you can do that as well. So first of all, we've got our estimates here in percent, and our simulated result is going to be in dollars. So we got to convert our percentages for the Monte Carlo simulation into dollar values. So literally the same information here, just converting it into dollar values. So our worst is going to be the base estimate times 1 plus the percentage deviation, right? And because I'm going to drag across, I'm going to lock in that. And it's just dumped it in percent automatically, but I'll fix that up in a second. Drag it down. Put that one into general dollars. Just double check it's pulling the right data. Yep, that's correct. Yep, that's correct. Yep, that's correct. I'm gonna delete that for you here so we can fill that in. All right, now here, so we've got our values in dollars, in millions of dollars, and now it's time to fill in the distribution. So you can do it as 2 ways. You can go to your Argo tab and you can use the GUI to fill it in, or you can use the formula, and every formula from that's Argo related will start with RTA, and you have all these distributions you can fill in and put your parameters in. But I think it's just a bit difficult to start off with because it's not so super clear. So what we're going to do is we're just going to use the GUI to fill in the first one and drag the formula down. So we're going to go a triangular alt distribution. So that's a continuous distribution. So we're going to go to distribution, continuous, triangular alt, and then we're going to start selecting values. So it's important, our min value in this case for a triangular alt is actually going to be our optimistic value and not our best value. And the reason for that is because we're going to put the percentiles where those tails sit in a second, and the absolute lower bound and upper bound values in just a second. So we're going to do our mode, which is going to be our likely value. Our maximum is going to be our pessimistic value because we're moving from low to high. This is going to be 10% minimum and 90% maximum percentile. Our lower bound, so our absolute lower value, is going to be our best case scenario. And our upper bound is going to be our worst case scenario here. And that's what that distribution now looks like. See, it's just a little bit skewed. It's a good visual way of seeing as well what your data looks like. I'm going to click apply. Now I'm going to drag the formula down. Just going to put a line under there. And I've already summed it up here. Now, in your summation tab here, because this is my new simulated budget, I'm going to put equals RTA result and then the formula. And the reason for that is because you need to tell Argo that this is a result cell, because it's going to track that cell, because that's the result you want, right? You want to see how much budget you need with your contingency. You can do that graphically too by just going to result, add result, and select your cell. Select your cell first and then add result. You can also add a name if you want, because it's just going to work off a cell references P19. You can add a name and just say budget plus contingency. Budget contingency. Yep. No, doesn't like it. Let's just leave that one. Anyway, so let's put it as a result cell here. Now, it's filled in the numbers here, but it hasn't actually run a simulation because I haven't told it to run a simulation yet. It's just filled in a number from this distribution and populated it. So this result is just a selection of a value from this distribution, from that triangle. And now I need to run simulation, right? Because that's what we're here for. So I'm going to go to options, and I've got 10,000 here as default. You can put it as 1,000 or 10,000 is fine. And I'm going to choose Latin Hypercube sampling because that's the efficient sampling method. And I'm just going to click apply and simulate. And it'll tell you when that simulation is complete, usually quite fast. And this is just a bug, but normally it updates these values. It did in the earlier versions of Argo, but then it had an update and it just didn't do it. Don't worry, it's still running the simulation in the background and doing the calculations dynamically. It's just that unless you click options, don't change anything, just click apply, then just changes the numbers. Then it's a bit strange. See how it changed then? Put it back to 10,000 and simulate. Anyway, we simulated now. It's basically chosen a value from here, a value from here, a value from here, added it up, saved this number, and done that 10,000 times. And now I want to see what those results look like. So I'm going to select the cell. Analysis wizard, you can do selected cell, or you can just go choose distribution results. Because I've assigned this as a result cell, it's already come up here, P19, P19. I'm going to click OK. So no surprise, it's basically a normal distribution because of the central limit theorem. And what I've got here is the PDF and some basic statistics, right? But what I'm really interested in here is the percentile table. That tells me my P80, my budget plus contingency. And I can have various charts here, like a CDF, which is literally just this plotted here. Or if I like reading reverse CDS, I can do it too. But I think it's just maybe a bit too much data. If you want a quick and dirty answer, that's fine. It's perfectly fine. But if you want to embed charts, you can do that too. You can go to embed charts, choose distribution, P19. Make sure it's dynamic, so every time you run a simulation, it auto updates the charts. Click multiple, and here you have your CDF chart. And you can do the same with tables, choose distribution and results, click it, and then this is really what I'm after. A very simple table with percentiles, And here we are, P80, we need 331 million, which is the budget plus contingency. And that means I need this amount of money to make sure to have an 80% chance of not exceeding my budget, compared to my 299 I had here as my baseline estimate. But I want a contingency, right? How much percent contingency? So I'm going to do just that. So my contingency is simply going to be my value. I'm going to put that in brackets. Minus my baseline. And I'm going to lock that baseline in because I'm going to drag it down. Close the bracket, divide it again by my baseline. Lock that one in. Click enter. Populate it for me. And then I'm just going to go to home and convert that to percent. So if I want an 80% chance of not exceeding my budget, I need about a 10.8% contingency. 10.8% contingency. And by the way, if you don't like listening to video and me stepping through this on video, I've actually put the step-by-step steps here in the PowerPoint. So you can, if you're more of a reader, that you can still follow through and do this on your own if you like. Now, so a contingency of around 10 to 11%. All right, so that's pretty good. Now, there's probably a lot of questions, right? Like, well, what happens when I choose a normal triangular distribution over a triangular alt? Because a triangular alt still has my pessimistic and my optimistic data in it. But a triangular distribution only takes worst, best, and likely. So I'm missing out on pessimistic and optimistic. So how does that change my result? And it's actually one of the case studies later, but I decided to quickly do one here as well, just as a comparison. And you'll find that in this case, the numbers aren't too different. Obviously, you're going to get different numbers every time you run a simulation because they're never going to be exactly the same. You're going to get a different number than I have. But if you run more and more and more, you should sort of converge to a similar value, but they're around 10%. But comparing triangular alt to triangular, they're basically about the same contingency. So it didn't have that much of an effect. And the reason why they have a similar shape, similar characteristic, but when you select the triangular alt distribution without final upper and lower bounds, but you keep the pessimistic and optimistic 10 percentile values, you haven't really restructured the distribution of what it looks like. So your results are always going to be similar. The reason why specifying pessimistic and optimistic makes a difference because it really just sort of locks in what your tails are going to look like. And sometimes they might look exactly the same even if you didn't specify them, but this gives you assurance that you definitely specified what they look like. And it just trims the extremities of the distribution off in comparison if you do specify your 10 percentile values. So that's basically the difference. It's not massive. Even if you were to do a beta PERT distribution, the differences aren't going to be massive. It's not going to really sway your decisions when you look at your results. It doesn't really matter that much because remember what QRA is for. QRA is for having enough information to make a decision. Being nitpicky about 2 or 3% is not going to make it's not a big deal because the answers, the inputs you put into your model in themselves aren't even that accurate. So take that into consideration.